Peace and love, everybody. This is Young Nas from iGotOptions LLC, and in this video, I want to talk about what PE ratio is. All right, now PE ratio stands for price to earnings ratio. So real quick, if you don't have a notepad and pencil, I recommend that you get that for this video because you're gonna need it. All right, so PE ratio, let me get into it. So price to earnings ratio is just a fancy word for this special metric and measurement that investors use to basically get a gauge of the value of a company. All right, now with that in mind, the way that you get or the way that you calculate what the PE ratio of a stock is you have to divide the stock's price, the stock share price, by its EPS or earnings per share. All right, so if you don't know what EPS or earnings per shares is, I recommend that you check out my video that I made about 2 or 3 days ago as I go into more depth and break down what that is. All right, so that being said, assuming you do know what EPS is, that's what you would do to calculate the PE ratio. All right, you would take the stock price and divide it by its EPS. Now, the reason that investors would even want to do this in the first place is because it's just a more advanced, complex way of comparing a stock's price to how much they make or their earnings. All right, so just to give you an example, if there is a stock that cost $100 and their EPS was $3, all right, now remember, all we're trying to do is calculate the PE ratio. So in order to do that, we take the share price, which is 100, and divide it by the EPS, which is 3. And that leaves us with what? About $33, $34. All right, so that's what our PE ratio is in this case. It's basically $34. Now, basically what this tells investors is that the price of this stock is being valued 34 times greater than the profit that they make or their earnings. All right, that's essentially what they're trying to say. So with that being said, that might cause investors to not want to invest in that stock because they may think that's too overvalued, right? They may want to invest in a stock that's only, 5, 10 times greater than however much earnings they generate. That's really the general concept of PE ratios and how you use them. All right. The only additional thing that I'll say is that investors also tend to use this on stocks in the same industry. All right. So they'll take, a stock in technology like Apple and compare it to a stock like Microsoft. That way they can get a better gauge of what's overvalued and what's undervalued when comparing it with different companies. All right. So with that being said, this is really the general concept of what PE ratios are. And this is how investors can tend to use these metrics to better understand how to evaluate a company. All right. Peace.